Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Test Cloud for Defense Modernization, Faster Releases, Lower Risk, Audit-Ready Evidence. We're glad you could join us today. Before we get started, I'm just going to take a quick moment here to introduce Fierce Software. Fierce Software is a small, woman-owned, value-added reseller. We specialize in enterprise open source software, market-leading DevOps capabilities, and secure data platforms, all with a strong focus on supporting our public sector customers. Our unique reseller perspective helps us understand your goals and technology challenges, allowing us to offer solutions from our extensive portfolio instead of just a single vendor approach. We set ourselves apart in the reseller market by consistently delivering on our core capabilities. We act as an innovation broker, connecting our customers with leading technologies and the smartest people behind them. We serve as a license manager, simplifying procurement and reducing administrative overhead. We focus on customer success, providing access to vendor-trained and certified professional services. And we prioritize customer enablement, offering workshops, webinars like this one, and hands-on events to help teams stay current and build real-world skills. For today's session, we are joined with Mike and Paul from UiPath, and they're going to be walking us through how UiPath Test Cloud can help teams move from reactive validation to repeatable audit-ready mission assurance. If you have questions at any point during this webinar, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll address them either during or after the presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Mike and Paul.
Thank you, Jody. And can everyone see the screen?
Yep.
We're going to switch back and forth a couple of times because I want to keep this moving along. So first of all, thank you for joining, everyone. I'm Mike Buttram. I'm joined by Paul Bratlin. We both have been in and around testing for 20 plus years. And what we're going to talk about today is based on conversations we're having and where we're seeing the potential. It's not going to be a feature tour per se. It's a practical conversation around how defense organizations can make better release decisions. So we'll cover AI augmented testing, SAP testing, end-to-end testing. And the central idea is testing becomes more valuable if you give leaders confidence in change, confidence in the release. Oops. Here we go. When we talk about test automation in defense, it's really three executive level problems at once. The first is release confidence. You've got ERP, web, desktop, API, and all these workflow changes moving through a program. And you need a repeatable way to know that the important scenarios were validated before it gets to the next gate. The second item is lower manual burden because manual regression is expensive, it's slow and difficult to maintain. So the goal isn't just to run tests faster. The goal is to let your skilled people focus on the exceptions, focus on the value-added work. And then third, once those two are handled, you have to do this at scale. A pilot only matters if it can become a durable capability for the organization. So the outcome that we're looking for is more confidence in that change. That's why we describe test automation as a release confidence capability for this modernization move. And one point right up front, what you see today can be deployed both on FedRAMP, IL2, or IL5 environments. So, but it's not everything that UiPath does. The commercial product is still racing ahead. So the latest leveraging coding agents and just interacting with a testing program with a chat, that's out there, that's coming. But what we're going to show you today is absolutely available as a mission-ready QA function. So UiPath's journey, it matters because the platform has evolved from just automating individual human actions to orchestrating across all these processes with people, robots, and agents. The practical implication is that when we address more than a single, we can address more than a single UI step, but AI doesn't remove the need for control, and this is what makes us different from every other testing tool out there. We're overlaid on this automation platform that can do work in production. It is that reliable. What we're adding is this bridge, this move from automation to agentic testing. So the question is not whether we can automate a test step. The question is whether the testing system can actually help the team reason about a change, help them focus on the risk in the situation, to do the validation, and preserve the evidence behind every release decision. So in the case of defense modernization, that means working across these complex application landscapes outlined across the bottom while maintaining governance, traceability, and human accountability. So we have to be we have to be faster and more defensible. And the market has acknowledged what we're doing here. The Gartner Magic Quadrant hadn't been updated for testing since COVID, I don't think. And with the explosion of ChatGPT on the scene, that changed in October. And they actually rated us as having the highest overall vision score. And that's due to two primary things. The first is the quality of that unified testing and automation view. And the second is how we're leveraging agentic testing or generative AI in our testing product. And Paul's going to show you real examples of that today. So that was early October. Fast forward 8 weeks later, Forrester came to the same conclusion. They put us firmly in the leaders camp for the same two reasons: the quality of our automation and that clear vision we had around applying agentic technologies. Now, this is a cohesive architecture. Test Manager is the control point that Paul's going to be showing you, where you manage requirements, test cases, results, defects, reporting. But we've got Studio and low-code or coded automation available to actually build that coverage. And Paul will show that as well. And then the robots execute that at scale. And this can be thousands of robots. So there is literally no limit. And there's an orchestrator level layer there that actually coordinates all that activity. So the benefit's continuity. You know, a requirement doesn't disappear into a spreadsheet. A test result doesn't have to be dug out of a log file. The work remains connected from design through execution, through defect triage, and release review. So it's a shared system of record. Let's talk a moment about applying AI. It's most useful when it's pervasive. So we have a single approach across our entire platform available online at the AI Trust Layer. If you want to Google that, it's a consistent way of ingesting context, of actually using models, either our models or bring your own, like genai.mil, and then being able to take action, be that through the UI, the API, or because we have the RPA heritage, very easy to pull a human into the loop in any of those processes. So today, automated testing is a readiness capability. In our view, what we want to do is actually go from long cycles of manual regression and disconnected work and distributed delivery to actually make it clear how leadership makes a decision. So the proposition isn't just QA efficiency. It's not cutting man hours. It's not reducing headcount. It's mission assurance, a clear, fast, defensible way of understanding the risk. So this is a familiar evidence problem. The requirements, manual test scripts, spreadsheet results, defects, and the decision all live in separate places. Hard part's not performing the test, it's proving what changed, what was tested, what failed, what was fixed, and why the release decision is defensible in this case. So Test Cloud, as Paul's going to show it to you today, is designed to connect those artifacts. The desired end state is a reviewable assurance thread, requirements to test, test execution, execution to defect, and then evidence tied to the release gate. So this represents an overall move or an operational shift from reactive validation that we've done in the past to true mission assurance. Means, the prior state is you test late, you assemble the evidence manually, and you discover issues after your release path is already in danger. So with this move to mission assurance, we want to connect the requirements, use AI to assist in the test design, you use AI to assist in the automation of those tests, in the execution of those tests, in defect traceability across the board. The important distinction here is that testing becomes part of the release system, not just an activity that happens beside or impedes it. So, two more slides before we get to the demo. First, the priority use cases that we're seeing out there. Huge interest in the defense area around ERP and logistics modernization, be that US Transcom, be that ERP Plus, be that, we thought EBS-C was going to be a project, did not end up happening. And those drive other use cases like maintenance and asset readiness. Those are usually part of that ERP deliverable. Tying to DevSecOps release gates, because the military they're trying to accelerate their ability to work in DevSecOps frameworks, and we enable that. There's distributed testing because there's so many parties involved in a big project, but there's still the legacy and Citrix desktop applications out there, and we actually work with those with the same tool set that Paul's going to show you today. You don't need anything else. And finally, the goal is there's a lot of interest around having an auditable outcome. So finally, what Paul's going to show today is starting with a requirement, generating and refining that requirement first, and then the tests, automating the workflow, executing it, capturing the evidence, creating and updating the defect, connecting it to a release gate, and then reviewing readiness. With that framing in place, I'll hand it to Paul. He'll show you how AI augmented testing turns that vision into a reality.
Paul? Sounds great. Let me take over screen share, and we'll start with a quick conversation here. Just doing a quick check. Yep, everyone can see my screen. So what I'm going to do quick is I'm going to hit play on the video. We can do this live. I just find it takes a little more time than we have in these quick conversations. But what we're going to do here is this is a version, well, this is our test manager. It's a project that we have up and running. And short answer is we're moving a lot of these features and functionality into a chat conversation. So what you're seeing on the screen is I've got a project. The first thing I'm going to do is say, hey, what are all the requirements in my system? Break those out by owners. So if I'm a team lead or a manager, I want to know what's being asked of my team. So really quick, I can make this a pie chart. I can make this a bar chart, however you want to see this data and go through. Well, it's all well and good that I have those requirements, but again, I'm a testing org. I want to start building out test cases. So let's look at Sue. Sue has these requirements that she needs to take a look at, but there is no per se testing done yet on these. This could be a start of a new release, anything along those natures. I can review, as you can see in here, I can review each one of those requirements. I can make changes if I need to. We even have the capability of enhancing these requirements by going through an audit of those and saying, hey, instead of pulling a review meeting together, let's go ahead and do a review. In this case, the video is just going to walk us through how to create a test case. So assuming that requirement's good to go, it's buildable and testable. Now, instead of me telling Sue, hey, go pop open Word on one side or Jira on one side and Excel or Sheets on another side and start creating these test cases, hey, Sue, let's just go ahead and create button or have a conversation, click some buttons here and start building test cases. So as you see in here, we're generating default prompts here. You control those prompts however you'd like to do. You can bring your own model in here. That's just a quick way of saying all the models that we provide. Short answer, what we're doing here is we're taking a requirement, supporting documentation, and we're going to produce, as you see, test cases, including steps. So as we go through in here, where you see all the 10 test cases, we put a limit on our system because it's a demo instance, so there's only 10. But as you can see in here, we give you name and steps. Now, what I like to say along these lines, and we'll pause real quick, the better the data in, the better the response back out on this. So if you hired me in off the street and said, hey, Paul, I need you to create some test cases for calculating the premium, in this case of an insurance, that's all well and good. I've got a decent understanding of that. I've been doing this for, well, a couple of years now. But if you gave me a binder or a SharePoint or a lot of information on your custom fields, your custom flow, your custom way of doing this, I'm going to generate much better test cases. And that's the same here with our agent. So we'll resume back up here. Short answer, we're going to pick a handful of those test cases, and we're going to say, hey, UiPath, you go ahead and create those test cases for us and append those to the test case, or excuse me, to the requirement. Now, moving on, because we're having this conversation within chat, Those test cases get linked in the backend. If they're already automated, great. They're all part of this system. If we need to automate, and we'll show you what that looks like here in just a second, we'll go build the automation for you. It's really quick on how to do that. But moving on in conversational track, as we're trying to make this a quicker talk from A to B, up next, this is the next problem that we always face in the testing standpoint. I need data to run my test cases against. In this case, I need to find a customer with a loan of over 45 and over 25. In this case, they happen to live in Spain. Now, instead of me as the end user or the end QA person having to go hunt and peck in the system, either pulling up the UI, doing the search functionality, hoping to find the right thing, or going in the back end and doing the query, all those things take time. I'd rather have my intern or my junior QA person do that, or in this case, have an agent to do it for me. So I asked UiPath to do it. It has an agent in the background that finds it called the retrieve test data. I'm going to say, yes, you're allowed to go do that. You go find that for me. And again, it's all a chat conversation. I'm not leaving the system to do that. It finds it, comes back, and then, hey, do you want me to do anything with that data? Do you want me to create the test data? Do you want me to search for different ones? And again, I can take this now and add it and say, no, now run the test bed using this test data or this user or this information to go off and run. We'll show you more here in a sec. I just wanted to kind of get, lack of a better way of saying this, this is our base functionality that's been in the tool since I've been with the company a little over 2.5 years now. I wanted to get this out of the way so everyone understands what this looks like from an end user perspective before we start showing you some of the nitty-gritty details or the new stuff that we brought in there. So I'll throw it back to Mike. A quick reminder, we've got chat wide open, so if there's any questions you'd like to have for us, go ahead and throw those in there, and either Mike or I'll jump in on it. All right, back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Paul. So the next thing we wanted to talk about, since the use cases we're seeing are so heavily ERP focused in the defense space, that usually means SAP. And our relationship with SAP goes back years. We are the #1 automation platform for SAP, not just testing, but or specifically, it's the broader automation. So actually keeping the core cleaner by allowing a simple way, as a natively integrated solution extension to be able to do automation across the entire platform. And our message here is to actually test what matters. Don't repeat the entire regression suite every time. This prioritization and validation helps your teams focus on uncovering the transactions and processes that really matter. So the way that we actually do that is twofold. The first is our heat map. It's real usage behavior pulled from production without any impact to production systems to actually understand how your system is being used. So the size of the box, Paul's going to show this live, but just briefly, the size of the box is how much that transaction is being used, and the colors indicate coverage. Green, the tests are there and they're passing. Red, they are failing. So, it gives you a 30,000-foot view of where you should be focusing on. So it doesn't replace business judgment, but it gives your business and test leads better evidence for deciding where to spend their time. So that's production. But what about when changes come along, when you have transports come along? This adds another layer of precision. When any UI changes, API changes, or even security changes happen, you want to be able to identify which tests might be impacted and which users might be impacted. So what we want to do is shorten the path from that change to a really focused validation. And we use a similar color coding method here, where blue indicates that there are changes there, but you have test cases there to cover that. And the magenta or fuchsia, I don't think we have an official name for that. That indicates that there is a gap there. But Paul's going to show you how easy it is to create test cases for both of these scenarios. If you see if you see a gap on the heat map, easy to create test cases based on that with a couple of clicks. And then when you're deploying transports into the implementation, very easy to create test cases based on the gaps that you identify. And when we say SAP, we mean literally every SAP, every Web GUI, Win GUI, Fiori, SuccessFactors, Fieldglass, Concur, doesn't matter, as well as all the API ways to interact with the system, the non-UI methods. So absolutely everything's covered in the same approach that Paul's going to show you. And with that, let's have Paul show you.
Great. So yeah, like Mike was saying, this is our live instance here on our demo things. Couple of things I want to pop out. First off, heat map, like Mike said, you're going to point this as the highest environment that you have. From a QA perspective or the testing side of life, I can come in here and configure this on what matters to me or to the company. In my case, like Mike was saying, I care more about how a user interacts with this than the time somebody spends on it or the execution. So my user base is in here, so I have that higher than anything else in here. Again, your company or your customer or however you want to do this, you decide how you want to see this box. But like what Mike was saying, really quick, I come in here, this is my live dump. I can do this on a fairly regular basis. I can do this once a day, once an hour, once a minute. You decide. I can also do this once a week. However you want to get this data in here. But what I like from this perspective, again, putting on my QA hat, if I was a new hire or new coming into an SAP project, and I need to decide where to spend my time, this is really quick. My basic components, as you see in here, are wide open. There's a lot of usage going in here, a very large box here compared to everybody else, meaning a lot of people are in here, but I haven't built any test cases for this. So I would instantly probably start spending time here more than I would spend time here. And that's just a quick A/B. Hey, where do I spend my time and off and running? Just like if I have a bunch of failed test cases in the sales side of life, where should I be spending my time trying to figure out what's going on or what group to go talk to? Again, if I'm in the sales side of life, I'd be worried about these big red boxes or orange or blue or whatever color this is versus this one because it has some time on it. So it's a nice quick little way of doing that. Again, I can drive into it and I can find out more information on what failed and what passed and go down that path. So this is a really handy way of not only determining where I should spend my time, but where are issues going to arise through this release. Up next is I've got changes coming to the system. Inevitably, SAP makes changes, my custom code changes, my internal group makes changes, workflow changes, all those sort of things. And in the past, I would have to hope and pray that people checked in properly and related it to a requirement and their comments were correct and all of those things that we just know as an industry don't work. Changes always slip through because people are people and errors, mistakes, and misunderstandings happen. Here, our live analysis will help us see that coming through. So in my instance, we have a bunch of changes going through. We have 29. I'm just going to select the first 10 for now. And I'm going to say, hey, UiPath, do the heavy lifting for me. Look at what's coming into my system and tell me where I need to be spending my time or where can I reduce risk. So from a UI perspective, gray boxes, nothing's changing. Red box or magenta, that means that I've got to change there and I have no test cases to cover it. You can notice we also do this for API. And for the security side, I didn't have anything on the security changes here. But again, in the matter of moments that I've been speaking to you, I can say with confidence, the release coming in my system is only going to affect here and those API changes. So like Mike said, hey, I've got a gap here. I have 0 test cases covering this change coming in here. Well, that's all well and good. Let's fix that. So very much like we did from a requirement in our last conversation, I'm going to do this specifically for SAP, specifically from what UiPath is telling me is a gap in my testing. So I'm going to add documentation. Let's say the heat map, the graph, the comparing security guidelines. I can choose all of these or I can add additional ones. What am I trying to do? Let's say I'm doing a business process testing SAP. Here's a new prompt. I can put in things like ensure pre and post conditions exist. Again, these prompts are customizable at the project level or at the individual level. You decide. I'm going to stick with Cloud, but again, as always, you can bring your own model or choose any other model there.
For
And just
instance,
like
if you can't use Claude in
yeah,
this
I was going to
case.
say, for example, some of us can't be using Cloud. So yeah, you use the genai.mil and it would be part of here. And you can turn off all the other ones if you don't want to use those. Now, what I like to say here, back to that trust layer that Mike was talking about in the slides earlier, we have the ability to, lack of a better way of saying this, we don't train train our model on your data. If you use one of our models, we take it, we produce the results, and then everything that caused the creation of that results, the data you provided, the prompt that created it, so on and so forth, we destroy. We don't use it to retrain our model. Now, there's some benefits there, right? You don't have to worry about your data leaking because you send it to UiPath. That's where that trust layer comes in. There's some disadvantages, i.e., our model isn't learning, meaning our model isn't learning along with you. So if you have a certain way of calling things, you always have to tell us that. Now, if you bring in your GenAI mill or another model of yours and you turn on learning, it'll learn along with you. Long term, you're probably going to get better results from that because you're always going to have a consistent message in and message out. But as you see in here, we can generate X number of requirements, preconditions, and all those steps. I can select all of them, create test cases, and now that's part of my test bed here. So I'll go ahead and do that. And this gap should go away from being a gap. Sometimes I have to refresh the screen because it takes a little bit of time. But now we have a coverage there and not a gap. We have a hit, meaning I have test cases that cover that. So coming back and going to the analyze, I hit the button too fast. But short answer here is if I run this again, that box should change colors. There you go.
Yeah, in fact, it shows that there's a change, but you've got coverage.
Yep. So really quick, I know we're throwing a bunch of different things at you, but back before I turn it over to Mike, I've now built a set of 10 test cases. Again, my demo instance, I limit my responses down so we don't take as long. You can make that 25, 50, however you'd like. But in a couple of minutes, what I've shown you is I've got a change coming in the system. I don't have test cases to cover that or at all in this process or this T code. Generating test cases and sending them and building those off. Now, what we didn't show last time is I can now take these test cases that I've generated for these, I can bring them into UiPath Studio, and I can right-click on those and generate test cases and automation from those. All right, Mike, back to you.
Yeah, you kind of glossed over the big win here.
All right, you want me to actually show it? I'll actually show it.
Are you going to?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we got a couple of minutes, right?
Yeah. Because creating the manual test case is great, and ChatGPT will do that for you, but the real power is moving to automation.
So I'm going to bring us over into Studio as soon as I click the right button here. So I'm going to use one of our demo instances, UI Bank application. For those of you who've been around with UiPath for a while, it's a tried and true one. For those of you who've never seen this, let me spend 3 seconds here really quick. Our low-code approach is activities, not code. So if I want to, for example, type into the email address, guess what? It's an activity called type into. What do I want to type in? I want to type in user@example.com, and then we drag and drop our object repository into this. I'll talk to that, but real quick, one of those manual test cases that I created earlier, it shows up in Studio in here. I just right click and say, I don't want to do the work of dragging and dropping UiPath. I want you to do it. Generate with Autopilot. So those SAP ones I just created, if I had a project in Studio that was related to it, they would show up over here in this right-hand side. I just right click and I say, UiPath, do the heavy lifting. It takes a couple of seconds here. While it does it, but I'm taking those manual steps, the clicks, the types, the open up the browser, all of those things. It's combining those with its activity knowledge set, and shortly here, it's always the snap. This is why I like the video goes through a little quicker on this, but this actually generates that test case, including those activities, and it'll come back here. I'll let this run for a couple of seconds in the background. Usually it's a little peppier. I guessing, see, I had to stall for enough time for it to pop in here. But as you see in here, open up the browser, go to the products and apply for this loan. And that's what it does. So again, taking a step back before throwing it over to Mike, from either a requirement, I can generate a bunch of test cases. From SAP Live Compare or from heat map, I can generate test cases. I can send them into Studio and I can create an automation, save that and bring it back into Test Manager. And we've been on this call or the webinar for less than 30 minutes, and I could have built 25, 30, 40 test cases in that time, even automate them and get them ready to run. All right, back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, so that was SAP, but a lot of your environment is not SAP. So you've got other systems out there, like Oracle's very prominent, including their PeopleSoft offering. Salesforce pokes its head in, maybe even Workday. So we actually address this as an overall testing control plane. It's a common place to plan, build, execute, govern all the automated regression across that mixed environment. So it does not matter the underlying technology. We have the ability to actually manage that process and have the evidence roll into one assurance record. So a mission workflow changes, the regression pack runs across all the relevant systems, you capture the evidence, and then you've got a clear go or no-go signal. That's the goal here. And back over to Paul for that end-to-end view.
Yeah, so we're going to introduce a new thing that you haven't seen for this. So let me bring this one up and drag it on over and I'll share. So while we've been talking about building test cases and using the chat to go through it and do that, now we're going to start talking about how do I integrate something changing in system A that affects system B and testing all the way through on that one. So again, well, probably a little bit of an eye exam. Let me give you a little bit of more real estate on here. So short answer here is I've got API that might be affecting system A. I might have Playwright. Again, we integrate with everybody. We can run Selenium, Playwright, any of our competitors out there, we can help with that conversation. I can also obviously run myself, as you can see through here. I might also have some mobile components. Short answer here is I have a lot of different things when I talk about integration testing or testing the entire run through or business flow through. System data comes into a system, maybe get passed down to multiple systems, and all I really need to know from an integration standpoint is the end result. But I want to test it along the way to make sure each one of those comes in. So this is one of those kind of flows in general. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play on this, or actually run this in a debug. This start can be anything from a CI/CD kickoff, going back to Mike's example from where we fit in the grander scheme of things with the orange in the middle being UiPath study, but we also called out to those CI/CDs. So this can be called from a CI/CD. I can also do this from a test set. Short answer though is I'm kicking this off manually, but you can make this part of a schedule or CI/CD. However you want to kick this off, you can kick this off. What we're doing here is, as soon as my debugging catches up with myself on the compile, we are going to spin this up. And that first box is checking to make sure it knows where to run. Lack of a better way of saying this, am I running in QA 1, 2, 3, or 4? Am I running on dev? Am I running on integration? Pass that to this information, and it'll configure everything up and running. Next, it's going to spin up anything it needs to test in that environment. You told me to run on QA1. Are my machines up and running? This is where our RPA side of life here at UiPath comes in, because that RPA can help us determine what to start up and things on that nature. This can also include any virtual machines or physical machines I need to spin up to do the testing. I have 1,000 bots to run on. Let's make sure I'm not paying for virtual machines that aren't running. So let's spin those up when I need them. And as you notice down here, there's also a cleanup for that. So again, we can help control the entire software development lifecycle here from a QA standpoint. Spin up the environment, configure the environment, run my test cases, and clean up. So I'm not paying for time that I don't need on this one. And of course, this one's taking just a bit of time to catch up with itself. My environment might be a little hiccupy on the backside, but as it progresses through on this, it'll start generating data. Once that data is up and running, again, back to our earlier first demo here, when I said, hey, I need a loan in a certain amount for a person under this age from this region of the world, all those bits and information, let's make sure that's available before I start my full-blown testing on this. If it's available, go ahead. If it's not, go ahead and generate it. And we may have to cancel out because my environment might be, and switch us over to a video because my environment apparently doesn't want to start up for this morning. So it's always these things, it works 20 minutes ago, but then somebody probably unplugged the virtual machine. But I'll talk to it real quick while it catches up. It'll generate data, and then it's going to run that entire test bed for me. And I call these a sanity tests because, again, I may not want to do a full bed regression run if I can't, for example, picking on shopping carts of the world, if I can't log in, search, add that thing to the cart, and check out, I don't want to spend time testing the rest of this. If it's an SAP instance, if I can't log in and create an account or transition an order or however we want to do that, why would I want to spend hours of my testing time when I know I'm never going to put that out in production? Send it back. And that's what this next flow is. So once this runs, if it fails, it goes into this gate, well, pass or fail, it goes into this gate. If it fails, it's going to ask, is there anything that UiPath knows how to fix this? Did the environment, in my case, did the environment not start up and everything failed because of that? Send that out to a human for review. They can decide if they want to go down that path and restart or say, no, I don't like those suggestions. I don't think we should progress. Tear down the environment, generate a report on what went wrong, what failed test cases wise, and notify our test cases, our users. So the shareholders can be either Slack, email, Teams, pagers. I've seen that work a couple of different times, and go down that path. So this is kind of hiccup being on me. I don't want to spend too much more time on this. We can send out the actual live run of this here after the fact, but that's what I wanted to get across from an integration standpoint. We can test with everybody and across multiple applications there. I'll send it back to you, Mike.
Yeah, I'm sure no one's ever had trouble getting a test environment to respond.
Right?
Okay, let's switch over and let's bring this home. So what we've shown today is that one single connected layer across these applications, across requirements, across test design, automation, execution, defects, CI/CD, and evidence. So that connectedness is what really changes the release conversation. So instead of just trying to assemble the status from all these separate systems, a release leader can really trace from the change to the tests to the results, manage all the open issues, and be confident of the evidence behind the recommendation. So for a defense modernization program, this is the core outcome we're looking for. We want to connect the world of testing to the decision of that release, of every release. And just to kind of outline the capabilities that we've talked through today, they align directly to practical outcomes. So Test Manager, which Paul showed you, centralizes the work. The AI assistant accelerates the design, accelerates the creation of the manual test, and accelerates the automation of that test. Studio and robots actually automate the coverage across the enterprise using the same tool that's used for automation for, most of the Fortune 500, in addition to a lot of automations running in DoD, DOW. CI/CD is going to create enforceable gates for every step of the process. And you've got dashboards and reports that work within the tool, but also will feed other systems of record, both ours on the platform in general and any enterprise reporting systems. So really the question to take away today is outlined there at the bottom. What changed? what was tested, what failed, what did we fix, and what evidence do we have that we're really ready to release? Any mature capability like we think Test Cloud should answer that question very clearly, very quickly. With that, I want to thank you for joining us today. The QR code will take you to our information. Feel free to reach out to Paul or I. We're on LinkedIn, on X as Agentic Testing. Just let us know how we can help any conversations that you're having internally. Jody, back over to you.
Thank you, Mike and Paul, for the engaging presentation and demo today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. You'll see our contact information on the screen here. Feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to connect and share how Fierce Software and UiPath can help support your team's automation and application modernization journey. If you're interested in learning more, we'd be happy to schedule a meeting with the UiPath team to explore what this could look like in your environment. We'll also be sending out an email within the next 24 hours that will include a recording of today's session so you can revisit the content at any time at your convenience. So keep an eye on your inbox for that resource. I am not seeing any additional questions in the chat, so we can go ahead and wrap some things up here. Thank you again, everyone, for your time. We really appreciate you joining us and hope to see you at a future webinar. Thank you, everyone.